Okay, thanks for coming. This is an experiment driven by a discussion we had a month ago.
Yes.
About urban warfare, and the reason I thought it would be interesting to have an interview, have a talk with you, is because of course you're from a different army than mine. Have a different experience than mine. The Danish Army's experience is mainly from Afghanistan, Iraq, and our combat operations are primarily Afghanistan in a counterinsurgency setting, whereas the Israeli Army has a total different view on things. And what spurred my interest in doing this interview was that we had some documents coming out from the US side and also the British side discussing future combat in urban areas. Yes. And when you did your presentation or talk about urban fighting in urban areas, I saw a huge discrepancy between what is actually going on, what is, and we can also see that in history. You see Marawi, you see Mosul, these places, and then how the future battlefield is described as totally different things. So I think there's a difference there that we could discuss at some point. But first, I think it would be appropriate for you to present yourself, a little about who are you, what's your military background, and just shortly your military experience. When we've done that, I've prepared a few questions. We'll go through them.
Okay. So my name is Gilad. I'm a lieutenant colonel from IDF. I've been serving in the army for the last almost 20 years now. No, it's already 20 years. I'm branched combat engineering since I joined the army. As an officer since 2002, I served in all of the big operations IDF did in the last 20 years, including Protective Edge in 2014, Cast Iron in 2008-2009, the Second Lebanon War in 2006, and I hope I'm saying the right name in English, but I think it was Defensive Shield in 2000 and what was it? 2003. Yeah, something like that. 2003, 2002, 2003. All of those. Most of my experience was in urbanized areas, although also maneuvering in open space, open topography is not something that that I'm not familiar with. And former to my arrival to be a liaison officer here in the TRADOC, I was a battalion commander. I did 2 battalion commands in the last 4 years. The last one I was in an officer school, IDF officer school, in what we call the first. It's the first school of in Israel of IDF, also known as Bar Echad. And before that, I was a combat engineer battalion commander, 601, 601st Battalion, and it's part of a brigade, of an armor brigade, an ABCT. So that's where I did my most meaningful post as an officer. 2 years serving as battalion commander. That was quite a thing. And my main focus on those years, in those 2 years, was preparing my battalion to fight the next war. And when IDF is talking about a scenario, we are talking about 2 main scenarios. We have one scenario in Lebanon, and the second scenario is Gaza.
Yeah.
And I believe that the main thing that we're going to talk about today is how we see future maneuver in a military operation in an urban, very dense topography.
Exactly. And that's the thing you can bring to this discussion is the real life experience you have from these conflicts. I think just before we get into the thick of it, could you shortly just describe the Israeli IDF, because it's not the Israeli army, it's IDF. It's a bit different than you know, the US Army or the Danish Army for that matter. And could you just point out some, in your eyes, the major differences between the US Army and the IDF?
So maybe the first thing to say is IDF is not branched like US Army. The Israeli Air Force is part from the IDF, and when Israel say army, so we talk about the whole army, meaning the Israeli Air Force, the Navy, and the ground forces are well detached. So although under the joint under the Chief Joint of Staff we have four major generals, one for the Israeli Air Force, IAF, one for the Navy, one for the Israeli ground forces, and we have more generals related to communications and cyber and intelligence, and that's a very big branch, and all of those have their authorities, and all of them are building, and they are in charge of building the force, and some part of it are in charge of actually giving missions and activating the force. So, for instance, the Israeli Air Force Major General is in charge also both on building the force, the Israeli Air Force, meaning from recruitment to accessions to training pilots, everything, but he also is in charge of missions.
Okay.
Meaning that when a squadron going to an operation, so there is some kind of a force-com using forces from the IAF, but it's not disconnected.
Okay.
It's not disconnected from the main.
You don't have to go to the joint force to.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not something that. So the joint force will be the one giving you a mission, facilitating, giving the intelligence, but it's a joint operation. But basically, the commander of the Air Force is is a big part from conducting.
And you're trained in the same officer school all the way through, or how's that?
So regarding officer schools, it's we have three kind of officer schools, but the main one is what I did in my last position. It's Bad Echad, it's meaning the first school of officer school, and this school trains all kinds of officers for ground forces, intelligence, communications, signal, cyber, soft units, everything.
Okay.
Now, when you take a look deeper into the Israeli ground forces, inside the Israeli ground forces, you see a structure that is in charge of training and doctrine. We have a command very similar. It's new, but it's very similar for training and doctrine command. And all the rest of the Israeli ground forces are, how to put it, it's some of it are parts of planning future battlefield missions, and some of it is basically in charge of units, of divisions that are actual maneuver divisions.
All right.
So
yeah. So your army is, I think you told me the other day, 80% is reserve, so you only have 20%.
Yeah.
and those 20% are conscripts, right?
So conscript is the large amount of the army. The active duty component of the army, soldiers recruit to the army, enlist to the army when they are 18. It's a conscript army. Everyone has to join the army for a length of, women do 2 years, most of the women do 2 years. Most of the men do 2 years and 8 months.
Okay.
If a woman serves as a combat in a combat position, she does the same as a man.
Okay.
Now, if you go to officer school, you have to do another 1 year and 4 months. You have
but
more.
you're still a conscript?
But you know, after you finish your 2 years and 8 months, you get you already get a salary. Like,
Okay, it's your job. It's your.
So it's already a job, so you are benefited like a job.
Okay.
But it's still a big part of a mission.
Okay.
Now, once a soldier finishes his conscript time, he moves to the reserve component.
Okay.
Now, in the reserve component, we hold everything we hold in the active duty, we hold in the reserve, and a soldier, a citizen in Israel, is doing between 20 to 25 years of service as a reserve. So basically, he will be trained any period of time. It's not every month, but it's every. So it's a big. I don't wanna get into that, but it's a basically the reserve component of IDF is big. If you take a look in the history of our wars, for instance, the Yom Kippur War in 1973, the reserve component of the army was the one who gave us the victory. Yeah. So active duty holds the lines and doing the mission against on the daily basis. But in a case of a big operation, the reserve component is getting. Some of it will act as a different, as a whole unit of a reserve, but some of it will come and enforce and make stronger the battalions, the brigades, the divisions, even inside our squadrons. Some of our pilots are reserve. Okay. So if you are a pilot, you are holding a mission and you are holding a position in a squadron, you have to train a lot. So there are basically, if we are going to war, you will see reserve components inside almost every echelon or unit in the IDF. You will see it all over the place.
Okay, I'll just check that camera and we'll continue on that note. I think it made a funny sound just before. It's full already, damn it.
Really?
Yeah. Never mind, we'll just continue with the phone.
But are you sure this phone won't be full like so long?
No, I'm not, but we'll see. Okay, let's go into the urban operations part.
Yes.
I'll just flash forward here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some of the reading I've done, the US Army's TRADOC G2 has come out with some notes. Even in the MDO papers, it mentions urban warfare, and so does the British DSTL came out with a paper recently. And what I see is a glossy picture of this mega city, which is 10 million or above. It is huge, it is connected, it is, there are people everywhere. We have to, the operations have to go on in a city which is living, if you know what I mean. There's people going about their daily lives, there's traffic in the streets, and operations have to navigate through that and still find the enemy. Yeah. And what you told me was a totally different picture. What you gave me was a totally different picture of your operation. So could you describe just shortly, how do you see, from your own experience, urban warfare conducted?
So I will take the case study of Gaza. And Gaza, it's not a 10 million people population city. It's a the numbers move between 1.5 to 2 million people in the Gaza Strip. inside Gaza itself, the city itself, and maybe we can show a picture of Gaza. But inside Gaza itself, it's a very dense population city. Now, Gaza City is bordered from the west by the Mediterranean Sea. To the north, you have a little bit of agriculture area, but it's also populated with very low housing. To the south, you have the same, but the heart of Gaza is a high-level floors building. You have giant refugees camps, and refugee camps are very dense and narrow, very, very dense and narrow.
So is this compared to what they describe as, you know, the slum?
Yeah, it's a slum.
Small, narrow streets.
Yeah.
There's no city planning, no plumbing, no water,
nothing.
no electric.
Sewage is running through the streets. But those are houses. It's not like tents. Those are
concrete houses.
But it's concrete houses or blocks, and those blocks are connected to each other. One of our former operations in defensive shield in 2003, we actually used a lesson learned from, I think it was Stalingrad, when maneuvering was done through the walls, using hammers, and that's the way we maneuvered in the refugee camps in Jenin, that's in Judea and Samaria, in order to avoid going inside the street. Now the houses are so connected, you are basically can breach through a wall and move an entire street without going out to the street itself.
And the reason you didn't want to go into the streets was
because
that was the killing
snipers.
areas.
This is the killing areas, and you have snipers, you have IEDs, and basically when you have to maneuver like that in areas like that that's very, very dense, you don't want to go to the killing zones, and the killing zones will be the street, it will be the IEDs, it will be everything. So in Gaza you have different kinds of areas, but the further that you go inside Gaza, you will find higher buildings, you will find higher, you will see more modern kind of buildings and housing. For instance, the shoreline is like every other shoreline that you can think. It has villas. Okay, so you have like places that are basically like the value of the land is going higher. The same way in Gaza, but you have areas in Gaza that are very, very, very dense. Now, Gaza, Hamas in Gaza, and that short clip that I sent you from Le Monde is explaining very good why it's a very problematic area to maneuver. Now, basically, think about, as you said, you have around 2 million people living in that city. It's a dense city. The insurgents of Hamas and the army of Hamas, it's an hybrid terror army. They live, they defend, they create their areas of fighting inside the city. And basically, you can
just to let everyone at home know, the Danish army is very focused on a near peer enemy, the Russians, which is a regular army, right? What I hear you say a terror army, so which makes my mind think of more the coin operations that we did in Afghanistan. But you're actually talking about an organized army. They might not be uniformed, but they are still fighting as a organized, coordinated force.
So they are doing both things. You will have units fighting in uniforms.
Okay.
They have units fighting in uniforms. You can find footage, live photos, and live videos from Protective Edge showing soldiers, real combatants of Hamas, dressed up in uniforms. Sometimes they camouflage themselves as IDF. They wear our uniforms. They try to look like us in order to make us confused. Yeah. They have a commando unit. They have a SEAL, a Navy SEAL unit, able to conduct operations using the ocean and trying to infiltrate through the doing like a U-shaped maneuver, going from Gaza and coming back to our side of the border, and they actually try to do that. So when I say an hybrid terror army, meaning Hamas is using both kinds of fighting. Yep. They are well trained, they are well organized, meaning that they have echelons inside their organization. You have a brigade commander, you have a battalion commander. Now maybe the battalion commander is not exactly numbered like a regular battalion, but it is a battalion.
Yeah.
Without getting into numbers, but a battalion in Hamas can be around 1,000 soldiers. And you have companies, and you have a platoon. Now those echelons are able to fight, and they have a mission inside their area. Okay. So when you are going into a fight, you are fighting against a platoon of Hamas. You're fighting against a company.
We could compare it to if we would end up in an urban fight in any other major city against a regular army.
Exactly.
Ways, yeah.
Now,
on the tactical level.
On the tactical level, definitely. But on top of that, Hamas is utilizing its own population in order to help his maneuvers. Yeah. For instance, for example, the lookouts, the guys in charge of pointing where is IDF is maneuvering. They can wear civilian clothes. They can be children, like in Black Hawk Down. If you saw the movie. If you remember the movie, it's the same. That scenario when that kid sees that Black Hawk flying and takes a phone call. That's basically what we are dealing with. Okay. And a very big important, two big important things that Hamas did in Gaza. First is the tunneling mission. They connected. There is a above the ground city. There is an underground city. Yeah. And when I say an underground city, it's a metro of tunnels connecting every part of Gaza city, not in sewage. Not only in sewage. It's actual tunnels.
Purpose-built tunnels.
Purpose-built tunnels with tons of cement, used mainly. The reason they are doing that, because we have the aerial superiority. They know if they're going up from above the ground, we will be able to locate them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's another aspect that we can touch on afterwards. The whole ISR difficulties, because that's one of the things that we
and that's a very big important. And so when we say an army, but it's an army using coin. Yeah. But it's using coin method. It's using insurgency methods to deny your ability to detect it. Yeah. And the minute you have an organization using two kinds of doctrines, basically, it's a well-organized army, but it's using terror and guerrilla abilities, or a policy, or a way of thinking. Now that's one thing they did. The second thing, because everything I described till now is a very defensive posture. It's not an offensive posture. So they did try to create offensive lines of tunneling inside Israel, and they do have those Navy abilities, those commando abilities, and it's all open media things. So I feel free to talk about.
This is unclassified.
So they did that. We are able now to. We are almost 100%. I won't say. let's say we created an obstacle denying that ability to dig underneath.
Yeah.
But the second thing, creating their winning picture, it's the fire's ability.
Yeah.
Hamas in Gaza holds an arsenal of between 30 to 40,000 rockets. Now, their ability to fire to populated areas in Israel and threatening our homeland, threatening our cities, it's in all ranges from 5 kilometers to even less than 5 kilometers, from 100 meters from the border. Basically, yeah. There are settlements, but from rockets fired to 5 kilometers up to 100 kilometers, they can fire from Gaza. Now, every moment that they are firing, okay, it's from their perspective, it's a winning.
Yeah,
they win.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's actually more an information warfare thing than it is the physical damage that they create.
No, they create physical damage.
Yeah. But they see they're winning just as long as the rocket impacts
as long as they are not knocked down, submitting, waving white flags.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're still winning.
They're still winning.
That might be one of the small differences we'd see in an urban fight. We envision ourselves fighting in an allied country, allied to us, but in a city either occupied by the enemy or that we occupy and they attack, of course. So that kind of turns it upside down. But still, there's a lot of similarities between things. I'd like to shortly discuss the difficulties of ISR, and then I would like to discuss logistics. If you have any comments on that, because that's one of the things that keeps coming up when we talk about urban warfare. But also,
I want to add something about the population. But
yeah.
So once you start maneuvering, there is that big question of what are you doing with the population?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's a big issue.
It is.
So the people of Gaza, they are not entirely the enemy for us.
Right. So they're more neutral, or
yes. So some parts of the population are totally neutral. Some of them are aiding the Hamas. Some of them don't want the Hamas over there, but they don't have the ability to refuse because it's an authoritarian regime. And basically, if you are saying no, they will probably shoot you.
Yeah.
Now, in Protective Edge, we did a lot of information operations in order to try and clear out the population from the area that we are about to maneuver.
Okay.
Now,
so the pictures, this is one of the things I would like to discuss. We just pick it up right now. I'm sorry for interrupting. From a soldier's point of view, the commander on the ground, what he sees is not this street full of civilians doing about the business, of course.
This is the nightmare.
Yeah.
This is a nightmare. If you are going inside the street into a fight and there is 1,000 civilians in the street, this is quite a nightmare for a maneuver, for a tactical force.
Of course.
If you're seeing something like that, basically it's a reason to stop the maneuver. And
that is why you did all your information operations.
Exactly.
To clear it out.
We are trying to clear out. We are giving. There are some of the footage you can see even from Protective Edge that, but Hamas is using high floor buildings in order to sometimes it's high floor buildings, sometimes it's tunnel, but they are taking like a couple of floors in a building, creating headquarters.
Yeah.
Okay, now you have a building like 10 floor building,
yeah.
And you have 3 levels of 3 floors inside this building that are headquarters of Hamas. The rest of the building is populated by other civilians.
And these civilians are actually there?
Yeah.
I would be thinking, as soon as the fighting starts, And they know
That's
we've
a
got our
question.
headquarters downstairs.
You don't know.
It's okay, you don't know. So that's
You don't know for sure.
right.
So you do preparations in order to clear out as possibly as you can. You give notifications to the population to evacuate.
Is this just blanketed out, or is it in a specific area?
It's not.
Which also wants the enemy. Hey, this is where we're coming.
That's a problem of when you try to minimize the casualties of your opponent and minimize the numbers of the collateral damage and minimize the numbers of the people dying that are not that they are not part of the opposition force against you.
Yeah.
You basically tell your enemy where are you going.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's a problematic thing. And if you you have I sent you one of the videos of a building that we bombed. That we bombed. And that building had a three floors of Hamas headquarters inside it. IDF gave notifications, sent flyers, phone calls. Actually, phone called the building and tell them, okay, guys, you better evacuate. Okay, now if you're hitting the headquarters with everyone inside, that's from an army perspective, that's a very good thing, because that's a win. That you weakened the enemy because you killed probably someone important that was in headquarters. But if you have so where is the balance? What is the right ratio? If there is something that you can measure and say, okay, if I kill 10 civilians but I kill one commander, is it okay? I don't think that's a moral question that you cannot answer it.
Exactly.
Now, if you look at the numbers of IDF about the ratio between non-combatant population and combatant ratio, we have the best ratio in the world. So I don't know the numbers in Afghanistan and Iraq, how many, and if we talk about Russia, it's something else. So if you check those numbers, you will see that for every person holding a rifle, okay, there were like 20 people dying not holding a rifle. IDF is holding numbers way lower than that. We're talking sometimes one-on-one.
Is that your ISR and precision strike capabilities that does that, or is that a training thing for the soldiers?
It's both. It's first thing first. It's a moral issue. Okay, we are trying to keep purity of arms. Yeah, and we are trying to disconnect the population from the maneuver. It's a hard thing to do, and those rockets that I talked about, it's everywhere in Gaza. Everywhere. If you take the picture that I showed you yesterday, the sites, the firing sites, it's covering.
You can see.
Yeah, you can see here in the picture.
We have one more down here, right?
Yeah. So a rocket is being shot from the middle of the neighborhood. I saw in my own eyes. I saw a rocket launcher underneath a playground in Gaza. So a playground of a kindergarten, okay? So it's a kindergarten in front. In the backyard, there is
it's an artillery site.
There is an artillery site going up and down with an hydraulic pump. Now, how do you fight in this kind of a scenario? You have to clear out. You have to clear out. Otherwise, you will get a picture, and we don't want that picture.
No, of course.
We don't want a picture of 10 children, okay, dead because of an airstrike. That's an awful. That's a winning picture for Hamas. It's not a winning picture for us. No. Now,
so that's why you're back to the whole information warfare thing.
And so when you are trying to attack those fire sites, you have to use very good intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance ability in order to do so. You can't just fire artillery, statistical artillery, wherever you like, because if you do that, you will just probably kill 10,000 people.
Yeah.
So when you say, so the preparation for a maneuver has to do things with the population. So that's why I don't see a picture like maneuvering and seeing a line of cars
in the street,
or see like 1,000 people in the street. When we see something like that, we will do our best to clear out the population. Now you can't get 100% guarantee. People will stay at their houses. Some of them cannot move. Okay, some of them are elders. Some of them have I don't know. It's an essential thing for him to stay here. Okay,
guard his house.
To guard his house.
Yeah. I get
now, if he doesn't, if she don't hold a gun, so it's one thing. But if he holds a gun, that's different. So is he a part of the fight or not? It's always a question.
Yeah.
But once you start maneuvering, this area it's being considered as cleared.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have like.
And then you have the whole tunnel issue.
Yes.
Them popping out behind you and everything.
Yes.
Talking, reading the literature about future warfare and seeing the discrepancies between what we see in Marawi, what we saw in Mosul, and all the other places with massive destruction of these urban centers. I think one of the differences we are talking about difference in time, especially. So during the whole IPB, intelligence preparation of the battlefield, the whole ISR collecting phase, you'll have civilians all over the place. They will actually be doing their daily work. So if you have a brigade reconnaissance element or division reconnaissance element going into this urban fight, first of all, they have to figure out how to hide. You can't have ours are often in armored vehicles, might not be able to bring those, and they will stand out in a uniform like this among a civilian population. So there's a camouflage thing. There's a how do we do reconnaissance in an urban fight? And that's where I see all the all the connectedness, all the people everywhere being a problem, and the whole ISR thing. How do we find the enemy? How do we track him? And then when we can do that, do we have the sufficient amount of precision strike to take him out? And then you have the other side, where you do the actual maneuvering. Your brigade, your divisions, they conduct the operations in the urban fight, where you see maybe less civilians but more destruction. Could you put some words into the whole ISR thing? Without we still classified. So, but do you think that no, unclassified, of course. Sorry. That the maneuver, the tactical units have to look upon reconnaissance in urban areas in different way. Speaking not only of reconnaissance, but all the other layers, ISR, cyber, drones, all that.
So, your challenge as an army, the US Army challenge as an army, and the Brits and everything else, your challenge is that you don't know where you're gonna fight.
Exactly.
We don't have this problem. Our areas of interest are pretty much limited. We are not sending exposition forces outside of Israel. So ISR operations are all over time, from day one to the end of the war, and they are continuing.
So they are ongoing.
They are ongoing all the time, because even now, as we speak, there is a division called the Gaza Division. It's the IDF Gaza Division. This division is in charge of making sure no Palestinian is traveling from Gaza inside Israel, unauthorized. And this division holds the border, and they are holding ISR operations all the time.
Yeah.
Also, we have the intelligence core, the IDI branch. So this branch is in charge of creating targets, of surveilling, of reconnaissancing everything, of creating the database for the maneuver.
Yeah.
Now, when we prepare to maneuver, we already did the MDMP procedure. When I prepared my battalion to fight in Gaza, I pretty much knew where I'm going to maneuver, what's my brigade commander plan, and I rehearsed that. I trained my soldiers to that. We created doctrine for that, everything. So we are preparing to a very distinct, very specific mission. Now, of course, it's the fog of war, and everything can change. And you have a great plan, but the minute you start fighting, you will always be taken from your home unit to another unit, and you will create a new BCT. And so everything is changing.
But you have a general good knowledge of it.
Yeah. So the fact that you trained your soldiers, and we will talk about training some.
Exactly.
But the fact that you trained your soldier to a basic scenario and you know what you are going to, it makes it easier to be flexible to other things that can happen.
Yeah.
Your flexibility is very high.
Just a quick one on that one. Just quick, and then we can picking up on it. We all know the thing where you are taken from one primary mission you've been training for a long time and then end up somewhere else. Are you, as a battalion commander, company or platoon commander for that matter, able to draw on a intelligence database to collect intelligence on what you are? Do you use a battlefield management system? How does these three levels I just mentioned get the intelligence for the new mission? Just
again,
real quick.
Yes, we have those C2 nodes.
Yeah.
So a platoon commander has some kind of an iPad, okay, and it's in his vehicle or it's in his hand, and this is connected to the database of the intelligence.
So he will be.
So the minute he moves from it's quite a procedure and it's very annoying to do it, but it's possible.
Yeah.
The moment you move from one brigade to another brigade, you will be attached to the information related to your area of interest.
So you don't go into the fight blindly.
No.
Okay.
Again, so it's something. So that's the ideal picture is what you said now, okay? But we did encounter problems of information being not in what's the right word for that? It's irrelevant. It's changed. It changed. In former times, 18 years ago, I think, I went to a mission in Jenin in Operation Protective Shield, and I received those aerial pictures of the area I'm supposed to go to, and when I came there, I discovered a new neighborhood that was built between the time that the picture was taken and the time that I received that. And I went to my operation, and basically there was a new neighborhood, and and I intended to come from this direction, and basically there was a new neighborhood, so I needed to change everything. So it happened like, I don't see something like that happening now in 2020, but in 2003 it was very relevant. Now today they are much more connected and they are much more prepared, and the database is much better, and the connectivity between those between the intelligence branch to the lowest command in the battalion, it's pretty good. Okay, and again, remember that because we are fighting in a closed area and everything is very close to each other, so problems like other big armies have, like networking, are it's not that they are going away, but easier to fix.
Yeah, because you can have it set up.
Yeah, you can connect to a server somewhere. In a way.
But it's first of all, it's a very important discussion, but it's also very important to highlight that difference, because when you are fighting in your own backyard like you are, you can set up all the comms nodes, basically set up a LTE or 5G network that will reach far into the operational area, whereas we have to establish it on our own wherever we go. We don't know whether we're going to fight in Africa, Poland or Estonia or wherever. So we have to bring it along all the
so
time.
There are advantages of what we are doing, and there are less. There are other problems that are created from that.
But let's see. We talked a little just to round off some of the things, and we'll go to training and education. Logistics is being highlighted as one of the difficulties. We talked about ISAR, recognizing that you have advantages, but logistics-wise, talk about the operation you mentioned where you went through the walls in the slum quarter and the refugee camp. How did you come about the whole logistics? How do you get your wounded out, and how do you get supplies in to the front soldiers?
So, if we're looking at so there is a big difference in IDF between the Lebanon scenario and the Gaza scenario.
Of course,
Gaza is very small.
Yeah.
When you're talking large-scale operations, it's pretty small. You're able to scoop and run wounded soldiers, and you can, if you have a soldier wounded, basically, if you get him quick enough to a vehicle, you can take him out of Gaza very quickly and send him to a hospital.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. That's
just my experience from mostly training in urban scenarios is that even though ranges become shorter, everything fighting range becomes shorter, but also when you move from point A to B, that short 100 meters in the urban fight is equal to maybe kilometers in the open area.
So the main challenge is to get him into the open area. Once he's in the open area, you can pull him out quickly to the border, and from there. So basically, that's the circle of that's the line that connects between the squad to the back.
Yeah.
In Gaza, because of the ranges, we are not. We will try to, as fast as we can, to take out a wounded soldier, and get him into a hospital in Israel.
Yeah.
In Lebanon, the scenario is totally different because of the length of the maneuver. So that's where lines of logistics of medical treatment are becoming much more difficult.
Yeah.
And we do have segments in the battalion and the brigade that are able to give good logistics to soldiers and give medical treatment to soldiers. We have for instance, in every battalion we have a platoon. We have a medical platoon.
Yeah.
Okay, and in that medical platoon we have a couple of doctors, paramedics, etc.
Yeah. So they can do the initial.
Yeah. So in urban fight, some of the one of the ways that we are preparing is breaking that platoon into squads. Okay.
Yeah.
And now
they will support
the company
okay.
level, and it's not a centric. So if you maneuver in a centric way, okay, you will keep the platoon together. Yeah. But once you get into an urban area, you have to decentralize, and you have to give abilities to every.
But I guess that does not only count.
And the same thing is logistics.
For everything else.
Yes, same thing is logistics. So.
And engineers also.
Engineers.
Do you attach squads to the companies?
So engineers, as a combat battalion engineer commander, the most annoying things that you can be, that they tell you to do, okay, break up your battalion, give some to each one, and
that's how we mainly work.
Yeah, and decentralize. But there is a problem with that once you have a mission. When you have a centric mission that needs a lot of personnel,
Of course.
professional personnel, you have to collect them together
Yeah.
and now do the mission. So the tension is always between breaking up and so
It's it's the eternal command question. I think
exactly.
we have had that on every operation, every exercise we've ever done in the Danish Army as well. Because as any army, we have too little of some of the main assets.
So just a quick note about the logistics. What we try to do is to give enough logistics, enough supplies for the phases of the operation.
Yeah.
So if the first phase will take, let's say, 72 hours, the battalion and the company, up to the company level, want to need supplies for at least 24. So the battalion won't need supplies for the 72,
Yeah.
and the company won't need for the 48, and the platoon won't need any supplies for the 24.
Which kind of brings me down to the whole question that we talked about very early on, that going down the streets is a no-go because that's the killing areas.
It doesn't mean that you don't do that.
In my mind, that tells me, okay, this becomes an light infantry operation. But also I know from your predecessor, who was a mechanized infantry guy, that they brought their Namer armored vehicles in, and your vehicles are designed to stand a little more punishment than ours are, because you operate where you do.
Definitely.
So acknowledging that the streets are danger areas, you still bring them in because you need them also to resupply and so on and so forth.
You have to bring your tanks.
Yeah.
You have to bring your combat engineer vehicles, because basically
you're fond of the bulldozers, aren't you?
Yeah, the D9. So that's a great machine to fight with in an urban area, because it allows you to clear ways. It allows you to break walls. Basically, in the first phase of the fight, you will charge with a large armored unit.
Yeah.
Grabbing the first line of houses, and then you will insert the infantry. And it's always a fight, and it's always a discussion between an IBCT and the ABCT.
Yeah.
The IBCT will say, okay, let's infiltrate with large numbers, catch the first line of, and the armored guys will say, why infiltrate? Just rush for the. No one can stop a battalion of tanks. Okay, so even if one tank will get hit by the ATGM or something like that, you will still be able to catch this very quickly. The minute you get inside the street, you have to work armor and infantry together. You can't work solemnly on infantry. If you are trying to do things only with infantry, hey, you're coming to listen?
Yes, he's very interested in urban warfare. So do you split up your units? Do you do task organized units?
Yeah.
And how far down do you do that? Is that brigade task organized? Also, all the way down to the company?
All down to the company.
So you split out the tank battalions into platoons and add them to a company, or
differently.
Okay.
Or
so according to the mission.
According to the
mission. So that's
exactly.
That's also how we.
So it's so we will build a company, like a CCT.
Yeah.
A company.
Combined arms.
Combined arms.
Yeah.
So it will be like one platoon of infantry, one platoon of armor guys, a squad from combat engineer, and it all will be commanded by an infantry guy or an armor guy.
Sounds very reasonable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's good to hear that some of the things we are doing, the good old urban warfare tactics, are the same as soon as you get to that level, because that is exactly, our doctrine, our way of fighting. I think that's just the way it is. It has to be done. So
let's check if everything is recording.
Yeah, let's just. I know the computer is, but let's just check.
The computer is recording.
It is, and this one is recording as it should, so everything is good. Yeah, We've got sounds everywhere.
Okay.
Let me just check this one also. Yeah, it's recording. Okay, switching to training, because obviously the urban fight, any operations in urban areas demands more. That's my point of view anyway. Of all the levels, higher skill level for the soldiers. You decentralize more. We just talked about that. Decentralize and task organize differently. Which when you create a company group with a tank platoon, engineers, and everything into an infantry company, in order for it to be effective, you have to train together. I've been doing these things before. Could you touch on let's see training, for example? How do you train for the urban fight?
So, and I will talk about it from my point of view, and it's a lot of the things that I'm saying are my point of view.
Yes, of course.
From a battalion, from a combat engineer battalion perspective, the fundamentals are critical.
Yeah.
So you have to start with good fundamentals, and this is giving you the good roots to be able to conduct all the other more complex missions. So starting with good fundamentals, meaning that the soldier will be able to be perfect in his combat skills, his basic combat skills, targets, okay, so range, rifle range, explosives, detecting explosives, professionally manualing or how you activate your equipment.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of different weapon systems that you have to master. Yeah. So this is the
individual training.
Individual training. That's the lowest echelon that you have to be. And in urban,
do you start doing that already during your recruit training?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a part of training, but so it's the first level of education and training. But when you get to the battalion, you have to train the soldiers into professionalism in that area of matters. Now that's the lowest individual training, and you have to do it very good, because in a large scale operation in a dense territory, and especially in a combat engineer, a soldier or a team of soldiers can find themselves, a small squad commanded by an NCO can find themselves with a different battalion, and now you have to be able to do that. So if we talked about the D9s, we are teaming those in pairs, and a pair of D9s can be sent to a company attacking in the far end of the brigade area. So you have to make sure those guys know and able to do what they need to do.
So that's the independence thing. They
and
have to think for themselves.
They have to be very independent. They have to be very capable. They have to be well trained, because they will be decentralized from their commanders, and they will still have to be able to bring the right things that they need to do. So that's the fundamental, and it's very, very important.
How much time? You talked about you have your conscript for two and a half years, 2 years, 8 months, right?
Yeah.
And of that, the last year or two is actually as a ready force. So you have a year to train them.
We have 8 months. We're training them for.
You're training them for 8 months, and then they operate.
That's in general speaking, the 8 months, because those are like the larger amount of the ground forces are like that. So it's
those 8 months, they take them from recruit through what we would call
basic and advanced training.
Yeah, advanced training, so you know your job, and to squad, platoon, battalion level. How much time in those 8 months are set off for fighting in urban areas specifically?
It depends in what branch you are. Infantry does the most, I must say, around 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Combat engineer soldiers will do approximately half of it.
And
But
when they started being operational, they do more training
much more,
alongside.
much more. But when you train in a company level, when you do an exercise in company level, a company commander or battalion commander that doesn't include an urban fight in his exercise, it don't understand what is fighting, what is training for.
Especially if he's in the Gaza division. So.
No, because again, all of our divisions, okay, will fight in Gaza.
Okay, like that, yeah.
All of our divisions, so the right phrase will be, all of our divisions need to be prepared to fight in Gaza.
Okay, so they're not task organized in one specific area, they can go everywhere.
They can go over, that's like a force con. They can be attached to the Lebanon scenario, and they can be attached to the Gaza scenario.
Which actually brings me to a discussion we had a few weeks ago, where one of the British papers says that it would be a good idea for the British Army to consider raising a specific urban warfare unit.
That's
we talked about where you said
that's an awful idea.
Why's that?
Because it's not a soft ability. So when you create a small unit for missions in urban territory, so you are creating soft abilities, and soft abilities are very good for gray zone operations. It's not as good in large scale operations because you need a lot of soldiers.
Yeah.
Now if you create
you need the mass.
Yeah, you need mass. You need a street can take an infantry brigade like that.
Yeah.
So one street, two streets, or those units. If it's a boutique kind of ability, so it's nice, but it will be able to fight like a small area. Okay, what are you doing with all the rest?
Yeah,
so that's great.
Yeah, that
okay.
makes sense.
Now, if you are making a lot of units like that, awesome.
Yeah.
But it's every boutique abilities are always you're giving them a lot of budgets to be able to perfect them for the specific. This cannot work in large scale operations. Now, when you're going back to the training from the individual and the squad level, those are very, very important. Now, in the platoon and company, the main training is not how do you open the street, how do you open the room. The main mission of that training is to be able to do it in a task organization force.
Yeah.
Meaning the company commander, when he's training, he has to understand how he activates his armor segment, how he activates his combat engineer segment, how he activates his infantry guys, and different ways to all the others.
Do you do that?
So you train. When you train in our training times, after you finish all the fundamentals, you will ask or you will get.
Yeah.
The brigade will push through segments to your battalion. Your battalion will give parts of it, and then you will train together.
Yeah.
And you will train together from the company level. Now, when you reach out to the battalion level already, so it's much more. You will get a full company or two companies to train with, and up to the brigade. So
this is physical exercise.
This is physical exercise.
You have some huge training areas.
I wish we had huge.
But you have some big ones down in the south.
Yeah, we have some good mount sites in the IDF, very good ones. They're very good to see. So if the viewers saw Fauda, in Fauda you can see that in Fauda 3, the last season, you can see there is a scenario filmed in a big circle.
Yeah.
Okay. In a square like that. Yeah. And that place, it looks like Gaza, right? Basically, it's the Mount site in one of our bases. Now, it very, very, very looks like a real area, and you can train there at least a brigade, okay, without we don't shoot there because we want to keep it intact. So it's not live fire, but it is a very good simulative area to train. Now, when you want to do it live, and you got to do it live, because when you train live, the ranges and the safety gets a new perspective.
Oh yeah.
And that's a very, so if a soldier, if an infantry guy don't understand what is the meaning of standing near to a tank when a tank shits, and that's the first time he feels it. If he will feel it the first time in a war, he will be knocked down.
Yeah.
And we have problems with soldiers. And the same thing about combat engineers. We use very high level explosives.
Yeah.
So if you are shooting some kind of a device, and this device creates a lot of destruction and a very big boom, if the infantry guys don't understand how these guys, those crazy combat engineers, work, they will be in the line of fire or they will be in danger. So you have to do both. I suggest.
How do you do that? Do you have?
We do have.
You have a live fire.
We have live fire sites. Yeah.
I guess it costs a lot of money to rebuild it every time a brigade has been thrown.
Well, we don't demolish the buildings, but after a couple of months you have to renew them.
Yeah.
But you have to train together.
Of course.
And my suggestion is to be more tactical without firing.
Yeah.
And add the fire segment only at the end after your guys trained a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, because you have.
It sounds very much like the way we actually do it. We don't do it in. We don't have a urban site to do it in, but still.
So what do you do about if you don't have an urban area?
You talked about simulation the other day, which is it's a thing that we talk about also, and the Americans are big into it. And you talked about there was a brigade exercise being done recently in Israel. Could you how do you do that? How do you?
So what we built, we actually combined that it was two. In the same base, there were two different facilities. One of the facilities was meant to use for a battalion level, with computers and earphones and joysticks for each platoon commander. And basically, those screens, it's like a cube for each platoon commander, and on that screen, a platoon commander had like a COD platform, like a Call of Duty platform, and all the communications, and he can talk with the platoon on the side, and you see in the simulator, you see like 10, 15, 20 soldiers behind him, or if it's the tank, so he sees these two more armored tanks with him, and so each platoon commander sits in his cubicle. Okay, the company commander sits in his cubicle.
So it's all connected like that.
And everything is connected, and the battalion commander and the staff sitting in a different position. And you do an exercise of the battalion in a simulative area. And the main thing is to train the command and control. Yeah. So the focused, the personnel that this kind of training is focused on, it's more the battalion level and the staff than the platoon, because the platoon commander is basically activating a joystick. Yeah. So
it sounds very much like the system we have.
So it's very nice, and it's a very good train. If you want to train your battalion, it was awesome. Yeah. And it doesn't cost any money basically, and it doesn't cost you logistics, and so the preparations are small, but it was a very, very nice site. Yeah. That was one site. The other site was the brigade level and division level training, and it basically was like a lot of computers, closed area, looking like a staff on the field, under the fluorescents and everything. But when a brigade staff came there, they train in all of the procedures you have to do.
So it's more like a staff procedure.
It's a staff procedure exercise. Yeah. What that exercise did basically was connecting both elements.
Okay, so there was a
So there were a couple battalions playing, exercising in those battalion level exercise simulator, and the brigade was training in a different room, but they were connected on the same scenario, on the same platform. And when the brigade commander talked, so all the communication worked the same.
Yeah.
This is an amazing development.
That's new for you?
That's pretty new. Yeah. So Israeli ground forces in general pointed this mission to this kind of exercises in order to strengthen the brigade level command.
Yeah.
And that was intended to do that. In this year, he wanted to train all the brigades like that, and then came the coronavirus, and it fastened the procedure because we couldn't train in a brigade level. That's why it happened quicker than we thought. Yeah. But basically, that kind of training it's a very good low cost training, and it's very good to scenarios, and it's very good for a C2 training and staffing and targeting and all of those big procedures that you have to do in fighting, that are sometimes very hard to do when you're doing a physical training. And this is like that's an add-on that is very, very good for training. And the good thing is that the scenarios can change.
Yeah, you can
very quickly. You can just plug and play.
Well, it does sound like some of the simulations. We have a simulation site in Denmark where we do something similar to that. Let's round this off with 3 advices. The most important advices you would give a foreign brigade that if they should fight alongside IDF, just what would you recommend a brigade train, do, equip before they fight alongside you in Gaza, for example?
I don't see that.
No, I know, but if a Danish brigade should fight in a huge urban environment, what would your without knowing our brigade and our abilities, what would your 3 main advice be?
First thing first, train very, very fundamentally your individuals and squad levels. Up to platoon level, the area of interest where you fight, it's irrelevant. Yeah. So in the platoon level, you have to train them to be masters of their equipment, of their abilities, of their squad fighting skills. I believe for once it's the most important thing. The second thing is the ability to centralize and decentralize. The flexibility of the platoon level and the company level has to be very strong. A company commander that gets a mission, prepares for his mission, and in the last moment before he goes out, gets a new mission, if she don't understand that this is the way war works, and it's taking him out of his focus, and it's making him, very tensed and affecting him mentally, and now he doesn't understand that he have to change to be able to do that flexibility. He's an untrained officer, and he's an untrained commander. And although all of us, it's a mankind issue. All of us feel inconvenient when you get something changed. Yeah. But if you train enough for that, so you did that. It's nothing new. Yeah. You can't go to battle and the moment something changes, you get freeze. It's awful. So you have to train them to be able to be centralized as a battalion, decentralized to a different segment of the brigade, coming back, those changes are very, very important to the commanders. That's a very important. And again, talking from a combat engineering perspective, we are pretty much, that's the way of life for us.
Yeah,
we can move
yeah.
every time. Just like, okay, where is the D9? And you grab someone that is free from mission, go over there and help them. So it's a very come and go thing, and you have to be very, very good, and especially in an urban dense territory, because the tempo in urban territories, it's high.
Yeah.
You have to keep a very high tempo of operations if you want to, and maybe that's the third one. So the tempo of operations in urban territory has to be very high and very, very swift and very decisive to get the effect that you want. You can't fight, from my perspective, you can't fight slowly. You have to, and especially in a terror army, you have to overwhelm your opponent, your opposition, because the minute you stop, the advantage goes to the defender.
Yeah.
Because if you stop an attack, and at some point you will have to stop your attack, the defender that's defending in an area that he knows well, has the initiative.
Of course.
The minute he has the initiative, you become the target. And if this commander, this company commander and a platoon commander, and again, the urban territory is very tactical. It's a low echelon fight.
It is.
So if you don't understand that the minute you stop, you have to create a good circle of defense around you, and a very, very tight one, a very strong one, and not staying in that same position all the time. You have to, this thing creates a high tempo of missions.
But also a willingness to take risks, I guess.
Exactly. So you asked before about going out to the street. If you need to move from one side of the street to the other side of the street, you have to do it. Now, how do you do that? That's the tactical question for the platoon commander, to do it in the right way. It's not impossible to move from one side of killing zone to another side of killing zone, but you have to use everything in your own to do that. Smoke, fire, suppressing fire, reconnaissance, everything you have. But it's something that a battalion level and lower echelon have to understand. So to summarize it, individual and squad abilities, the flexibility of the commanders in the platoon and company level to move from one side to another side, to be able to conduct high tempo operations. And the fourth one is and it's something that we all don't train enough, is how you defend the moment you stop. How do you
quickly revert to the defense?
How do you move from attack to defense? How do you create a defense perimeter, a good one, not a stupid one? You have to create a smart defensive posture in order to make sure no one can surprise you.
So it's a 360.
It has to be a 360, and it's not only a 360; it's a bubble.
Of course.
It's like that, because what happens if there is a tunnel coming inside your building? So that's a question you always have to ask yourself. In Gaza Strip, we had an incident in Protective Edge. One of our forces of a paratrooper force was staying in this building for 2 days. Now, they left the building, and another unit from the combat engineer unit came to destroy the building. Now, while they were maneuvering to that building, a tunnel opened inside that building from a cabinet, And this building was occupied by our soldiers for 2 days. A tunnel opened from a cabinet, the cabinet opened, We lost in that incident 2 or 3 soldiers, I don't remember, I think it was two soldiers, yes, it was the platoon NCO and his signal guy, may they rest in peace, they died because when they entered the house, a cabinet opened and they were, and two Hamas guys went out shooting. Now the minute the platoon commander understood that, he and the battalion commander, both of them engaged and they killed them. But they found a tunnel inside the house that they were sitting for 2 days. It's not uncommon to happen, and you have to understand that this kind of defense, this kind of bubble that's 360 above, okay, all this sphere above, because it's also include the lower level of the aerial area, because
the enemy uses drones as well.
The enemy uses drones as well, and the subterranean level, and you have to understand always it's a sphere around you. So this is the fourth component that you have to train your people to be able to defend once you stop the attack.
Well, that makes sense.
Well,
Gilad, it went a little more than an hour, but I think I think we definitely got what I was coming for. So thank you very much for your time.
Awesome, thank you.
And I know that we have other stuff that I would like to interview you on later on. You are working on some very smart doctrine and concepts for the future that I think the Danish Army could be inspired from. And I think that's for the next interview. But hey, thank you very much. Come on, Corona bump there.
Yeah.
And let's stop all recordings.
Okay. It was awesome.